initiative taken by IAAH, which stands for It's All About Home. And the reason they are into this is because IAAH also runs an NGO which empowers women through crafts. They have 200 women coming on board and coming to their setup, getting trained and getting empowered, making financially as well as. So I welcome Gunjan of IAH to kindly come and tell us what Sneh is all about and how they are functioning in Moradabad. Hello, Gunjan. Over to you.
Thank you, Mridula ji. I am totally elated because the topic today is very much close to my heart, not just through IAH, but through Project SNEH as well, where we are trying to help these women, getting them trained in our training centers and then providing them employment, and they are trained to work independently as well. So in this we have different departments where they are learning macrame weave, they are learning embroidery, they are learning stitching, they are learning rattan work, and they are even learning organic farming. So
Wonderful.
it's like because these people, they come from villages, and so they are a group of both skilled and unskilled people. So we have different departments so that no one is refused. Like, we can have them work in any of the departments like that. Yeah.
And this is really it's really wonderful because at this point in time we have a whole lot of other NGOs which are mushrooming, doing this kind of great ground level work. And the panel that you've put together today is also very interesting because we have, from different parts of the country, we will have Anshu join us to introduce each one. But the best part is that we have none other than Padam Shri Laila Tyabji with us, who's going to be sharing her learnings, her experiences, and her guidance for the newer organizations, the newer NGOs, the newer CSR initiative that is going on for empowering women through crafts. So I don't know whether Anshu is with us here as yet. Anshu, is she there? No, not there. So, okay, let me go ahead. Welcome, Laila ji. Welcome. And we are so happy to have you with us. And I don't know how many people know this, but to let all our viewers know that Laila ji was honored with Padam Shri in 2012 for all the great work that she's done in the crafts and taking the crafts forward and empowering women specifically. Though we do believe that crafts is for everybody, it doesn't have a gender bias. But for a lot of women, it is the only recourse for any kind of hope, any kind of expression, any kind of financial empowerment. So we'll come to that later, but first let me welcome you and allow me to introduce the rest of the panelists for today. Thank you very much for joining us, Laila ji, and we can't wait to hear all that you have to share with us. I'm sure the others join me in saying the same. Thank you. Can we have Anshu? I don't think Anshu's there yet. I don't see her on the screen, but can we? So, okay, while the others are coming, Laila ji, it's good to finally see you after so many months, almost a year. And how has COVID been for the craftspersons and for your sector specifically?
Well, it's been a very tough time because, the craftspeople, because most of them are sort of self-employed, they work in their own homes or they work in small societies and cooperatives. They actually don't fit into any of the sort of the official relief schemes that are available. They're not included in Manrega, and they also are not part of the MSME sort of small scale industry, which has got certain packages. So craftspeople were really, really hit by this because for 9 months they've been without orders, they've been without their bazaars and melas, and they've not had access to any kind of markets. I think everyone has been hit by COVID, including customers. So that's another thing, that craft, unfortunately, is not a essential item. So people, it's
True.
one of the last
True.
things that people think of spending money when they themselves are a little tight financially. So it's been a very difficult time. But like
Yeah.
all things, there is a positive to it. It has made craftspeople and those of us who work with craftspeople realize that we have to find new mechanisms for marketing. It has made craftspeople also realize that they have to constantly innovate and make things which people need to buy. That just making decorative items is not enough. They have to be functional as well.
Functionality has really become
Yeah.
big. Mm.
So been a time of introspection and learning, but it's been a time of great economic difficulty as well.
So, are there any learnings? Are there any learnings that you can kind of quantify?
Well, I think
Have the patterns,
the
have they
learnings that
worked on
we
the,
made is
sorry.
that none of us should get dependent on any one market, whether it is export, whether it is the Mela and Bazaar's route, or whether it is, a Fab India order. Because there is a kind of thing that's, oh, we've got into our groove, we can do that. But I think uh, this last year has taught us that you really can't depend on any one of these, and you have to have your feet in various different camps, and the craftspeople have to be very proactive and innovative about this.
True,
So,
true, true. That's very true.
there's one question which is coming in my mind, Ella G. So, like you are saying that it was a difficult time as people were. This is true that this is the last category. The decor type is the last category where people would like to spend. Then, what did you do to keep these women motivating and support them during these months?
Well, actually, we did quite a lot of things, and I need to also emphasize what Midula said earlier. Daskar is not just for women. We believe very strongly that actually, traditionally in India, craft has been a family activity, and that even crafts which were looked at as male dominated, the women always did some component. The problem was that they weren't paid for it. So uh, I think we have to recognize that women in the craft sector are a very important component. And now, of course, many of them who used to do things purely for their own use or their daughters' trousseaux or their homes have started selling these, particularly embroideries and weaving and patchwork. And I think that has been a great thing that now that they're actually earning from this. What did we do for them during COVID? Well, Daskar started an artisan support fund where we got donations from all kinds of wonderful people, not from government, not from CSR, but actually private individuals who care about craft. And we raised a quite impressive amount of money, and we sent it out to the craftspeople that we work with in about 19 states. We distributed about, I think, almost 50 lakhs. And one good thing about which was initially for foodstuffs and sanitation items, but then was for wages and raw material, just to give them a kickstart for when they started entering the market again. Uh, Now, of course, we've resumed our bazaars. We also started an online website, so we are selling through that. And I think that, uh, I mean, it was a stopgap arrangement, but I think what is very impressive about craftspeople and what makes it such a good economic activity when things are bad is that it doesn't take very much, because the skill is already there in people's hands. You don't have to train them, you don't have to, it doesn't require huge infrastructure, you don't have to build a factory, it doesn't use very much power
Mm.
or energy of any kind. The skill
Right.
is in people's hands and in their heads. And so even a very small amount, the amount of money we were giving to a group of women was maybe something like 50,000, or in some cases even less than that. But it was just enough for them to get their production going. And now that we've started our bazaars and exhibitions and sales again, they actually have stock to bring and sell, so they weren't just sitting on their hands. We also use that time to do design development. Of course, everyone was making masks, and so were we, because that's a very obvious thing if you can stitch and you can embroider or you can weave. And we developed a whole range of masks with about 10 or 15 of our women's groups, and they are selling quite briskly. Um, and I think that though the masks are not very expensive. You sell a mask for 150 rupees. It's not really bringing in a huge amount to the women, even if they're selling in sort of hundreds. But it gave them a feeling that we're doing something, that
That's
there was money coming in, and that
yeah.
they were part of things. And in a very, uh, I think, significant way, that thing that you were developing a mask which was responding to a situation in the
Yes.
country,
You were so relevant to
sort
the
of
yeah.
opened it sort of lit a tube light in their heads that, look, if we can react to a situation,
Mm.
all our product development should be like that. We should be
Based on that. True.
responding
Great.
to customer needs, lifestyle needs, not just making things that we've made for 5,000 years. So
Great.
I think that was quite an important learning.
That's a natural learning and that'll stay with them. That won't go
Yeah.
away. So now they'll always be. That's interesting. And
Yeah.
that feeling that you get by being relevant to a thing like a pandemic and that you can contribute and be relevant in that, I think that must have also really helped
Yeah.
their morale too.
Fact that every mask was a reflection of themselves, because whether they did it in patchwork or they did it in embroidery or they wove some ikkat fabric and made it or whatever, they saw themselves reflected in this very mundane, everyday,
Yeah.
rather
Great.
depressing thing,
That,
that, I mean,
that's so
wearing a
nice.
mask is no fun. They quite
Wonderful.
liked that, and when we sent them photographs of people wearing their masks, it made them feel good.
That's nice. Nice. So we have Anshu with us, and we allow me to introduce the rest of the panelists onto this chat session. Anshu, and hi Anshu. Hi, good to have you here with us. And I thought you'd be the best person to introduce everybody because you know everyone so well. And so please go ahead and introduce the rest of the panelists for the day.
Sure. I'd first like to thank Leila ji to find time to be part of this panel. It's a privilege. We've spent a lifetime just admiring what you've done with Dastakaar, and it's a
But
it's an
don't waste time introducing me, because Mridula has already introduced.
already done that. Okay.
You can
So
go on to the other.
So the three interesting people we have today, Mridula. Firstly, we have Meenal, who's actually a Rajput, married into the Dhenkanal royal family. It's a little state in Odisha. Hi. Meenal has quietly been working with craft for 30 years, but she played a very splendid role of being a sustainer during COVID. All we saw on her page was her going village to village, providing ration and healthcare to these artisans. And also, she and her sister Radhika, who's the Maharani of Baroda, they kept posting pictures of the craft that they were doing, and then those artisans were getting business through that. So they were sustaining as well as supporting them through business. It's really commendable what you've done, Meenal. Then we
Thank you,
also
Anshu.
then we also have this young girl, Saumya Pankaj, who I actually admire for her graphic design sense. She's a visualizer, and she worked typically with CNBC and other TV channels and typical jobs till she started a project called the India Craft Project, where she actually works with artisans to help them develop their products. I think during Diwali, her cards are a big hit. People in the corporate world wait to buy her crafts, and this time she made a very interesting what was it? An incense stand or something, and
Yuvrani.
the Luban, right? Yeah,
I
and
made Yuvrani gift box.
yeah,
Uh,
so she's actually doing what we all keep talking about, giving a design direction to craft, and that's what the Indian Craft Project does. We also have the lady who is behind Sirohi, and I have not personally met her, but I was, Gauri has been working. Hi, Gauri. So she works with the chitai makers and makes very contemporary furniture out of it, and it's all made from sustainable material. So I think we are really very lucky to have Leila ji talk to you and talk,
Yeah.
share how each one of you can help sustain craftspeople. So I think over to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me come straight into this, Laila ji, and let's go. We'd like to know how much ground do you think we've covered from the time you started, or you think now that we know your aunt started WTI, from those time, how much ground do you think we've covered in India? How far have we come with crafts?
Well, it's a very funny thing. It's in some ways, when I look back at the 40 years of Dastakaar, and before that, I was working in the craft sector for another 10 years before that. I feel that so much has changed, so much has developed. People have gone ahead. There are individual stories of people with whom, craftspeople with whom we've worked, and one sees them. One sees the difference in their homes, in the education they're giving their children, etc., etc. But when I look at it in the macro sense, and we have to remember these, that we have 20,000, 20 million craftspeople or more in this country, and that's families, not all the others who work in it. I feel that really nothing very much has changed. And though there are some individual success stories, there are some amazing developments of exciting products, there's revival of techniques which seem to have died. But if you look at the lot of the craft sector and their role in society or even their role in the marketplace, it is very, very peripheral. And that craftspeople today, and this is the thing that I think makes me saddest, is that people may love, consumers may love the products, but they really have very little empathy for craftspeople. And
That's true.
we don't think of craftspeople as skilled professionals, which they are. We sort of
True.
relegate them to some other sort of area, a little backward, a little primitive, and very few of us really take craftspeople themselves and the voices of craftspeople and the needs of craftspeople very seriously. In fact, there's so many parallels between what is happening now in the farmer agitation and the crafts sector. And it's something that we've actually been talking to craftspeople at our current bazaar and saying that, what do you feel? Is there going to be a time where craftspeople are going to be on the road agitating? Because,
But
huh, tell me.
yeah, yeah. So my next question, like this, just leads me to ask you: do you think people like what we've been missing so far is kind of a design direction that will make them contemporary to be used in homes? This is something like it's been coming back again and again, and to see the kind of work that Saumya in the craft project is doing, is that the impetus that has been missing in craft so far? Can we have Saumya on the screen as well, please? So what Soumya does, can you think there could be, Soumya, would you like to kind of come in and say what is the kind of work that you do so that,
sure.
um,
Sure. So I think when I'm introduced as a and I don't like to say graphic design because I use it more as a tool. But what I do say is visual communication design, which is like an umbrella term, and it has scope for more purpose-based design. So what we're trying to do with the India Craft project is to co-create experiences with the artisans. And after doing my stint briefly in advertising, in social media, social innovation, and in a media company, I left my job to travel to 6 states across crafts, cultures, and different mediums to get a more immersive journey into the crafts with the community and see where I personally can add value. Had no intention of reinventing the wheel. We've got some great, organizations and people already working very well on it. But how could I add value? So, what I also realized on this journey was that each time I was fortunate enough to travel with designer friend, non-designer friend, photographer, people from different fields. So for me, the journey became, from who am I traveling with, how are we traveling, what are we eating, who are we meeting on the way, to getting to the final destination and getting to learn something new, stories behind the craft. So with TICP, our intention is to introduce people to this whole experience. And while we do that, our parallel is to, like I said, co-create work with these artisans. So I'm trying to expand the portfolio of crafts from beyond products. So we're getting into travel and workshop experiences. And like Anshuji mentioned, um, we animate. So my recent project was where we worked on an animation. So we worked on our mood boards, collaborated with the Rajasthani miniature artist, and then planned how to break them and animate for a video. So essentially, to give you a gist, that's the kind of work that we're doing at present, and the intention is to keep working on that portfolio.
Great. So, Laila ji, my one question to you was going to be that what role can technology play in enhancing the product and the quality of the things that our crafts are witnessing right now? So, when Saumya says that she taught them how to make videos, and so do you think that's a bridge for you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the technology and is vital. I don't see any reason why craftspeople, even if they come from a very ancient tradition, have to go on doing things and exactly, sit on the floor and whittle away with some crude tools. I think that if we can enhance that experience for them and make it more ergonomic, that's wonderful. The point of craft is the mind and the creativity of the craftsperson and how he chooses to use it and for what, that's their choice. But of course, the huge dramatic thing has been information technology, because I think that has suddenly brought craftspeople, into situations where they interact directly, whether it's a buyer with a buyer, whether it's with a designer, whether it's on Pinterest with what's happening in the rest of the world design. That used to be a huge barrier because craftspeople's lives and their environment was so different from the urban consumer. And there was always a kind of gap between what they made or what they thought person in the city wants to buy and what the consumer actually is wanting. They didn't know the lifestyle. Now they can see it, they can
They can.
experience it, and they can also communicate. I mean, I've been doing so much of my design development during these 9 months on WhatsApp
Yeah.
because,
So.
uh, you know, even a craftswoman who can't read and write, she can
They
certainly
can.
recognize an image and
Yeah.
she can recognize a thumbs up when she's got it right, and that makes her feel very good.
It's also taken away some amount of shyness that they experienced in coming to the markets directly. I think that would have also helped.
Yes, I think that, I mean, shyness, quite frankly, in our experience in Daskar, it was always difficult to get women to the bazaar the first time round. You practically had to push them into the train to get them there and have them in your stay with you and look after their food. But once they've been and experienced that whole thing, then they're actually quarreling to know who can come and so that
Okay.
uh, I think that experience is important because that's where they see what people are buying, how people are reacting to their products. The bazaar is a very important learning space. But I do think that the experience of being able to um, not just chat, but to share ideas and experiences through whether it's social media or whether it's through your WhatsApp and your messenger
Mm.
connection has made an enormous difference.
Yeah, sure. Gunjan, what's been your experience in Moradabad? Gunjan? I think her screen is frozen. Okay, we'll come back to Gunjan. But so we also have Sirohi with us. And can we have can we can we have Gauri on the screen? Gauri. We've been we've been seeing Gauri your work, the Chitai, which is like, it was considered so mundane, and what you've done to it, and taking it around. And so, did you have to kind of upgrade the weaving or the skills for people when you started with Chitai? You're mute. You need to unmute. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we realized very quickly that we're working with women who are extremely talented, very skilled, and at the end of it, they're weaving and they're weaving a chatai. So and this is where the whole design aspect comes in. That we collaborated with designers to say that how do we sort of use this existing craft skill and juxtapose that to make more contemporary and, like Leila ji said, functional products. Because what's very important in today's and what's relevant in today's time is for an urban buyer to see a functionality in what they're buying. People want to buy a product because they absolutely love it and they see the use of it in their home. And then there's a strong story of sustainability and women empowerment. There are only so many people who are going to buy a product because a woman made it or because it's sustainable. And I think keeping these ethos in mind, we kind of said that let's use this existing craft skill, which was actually India's most quintessential piece of furniture, for the longest time. How do we use this existing craft technique and kind of make products that people will buy? So now we're actually making the most amazing things, from bags, and I don't think anyone could ever imagine using the charpai style of weaving to make a bag or boxes or trays. And these are all things that people use, right? And that's where I think our model evolved, and we've been very strongly using technology, where we use AutoCAD drawings. We've trained all our women to use WhatsApp, YouTube tutorials, where they get the drawings, they see the designs, they make the products. So yeah, so it's been good so far, and I think, like I said, at the end of it, if it's a great product, people are going to buy it, right? So
Great. So, see, Chitai has been something, and it's also very relevant to our climate. The use of Chitai is a very thing, and the kind of grass. So, have you had to get different kinds of grasses, or do you get everything is locally sourced for you?
So we don't actually make a chatai. We use the charpai style of weaving. So the chatai is the mat, and we focus on the charpai weaving style, which is essentially using the warp and weft, which is used even in
Yes.
making textiles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's our style of weaving and the craft skill that we are focusing on, not essentially the chatai as such. And yes, we are using a lot of natural fibers that are locally found in the region, because I personally believe that all your raw materials need to be within 5 kilometers vicinity of where you are. Just to, if you're looking at economies of scale, if you're looking at for the women to go buy the raw materials. So yeah, so it's all either textile waste, where we actually have a lot of plastic waste that's generated in our region. So we make ropes, and I actually have something to show, which is a rope made from complete textile plastic waste. So you can see it's twined, it's industrial plastic waste, and we use this, and we've actually made a beautiful box that's all
Yeah, I
woven
love
using the
Chitai.
charpai style of weaving. So if you see the weaving technique, it's all charpai style
Yeah.
weaves, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of a charpai, it's a box, all made from industrial plastic waste. And so I think people are becoming conscious about what they buy, and if they can buy a product which is functional, at the same time sustainable, I think we've kind of hit the nail on the head.
So what were the challenges for you to get women involved in this? Did you have?
So we work in Muzaffarnagar district, which is
Sorry.
essentially always known and it's known to be the crime capital of India, right? Can you hear me okay?
Your voice went off. Could you repeat that bit? For at least for me, it went off. I don't know for the others.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, now
Yeah.
it's a little bit.
Yeah. So I said we work in Muzaffarnagar district. That's where I am from, and
Oh,
it's in the news for all the wrong reasons.
yes, right. Oh, okay.
Known to be the crime capital of India, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, right.
are we? So it has been really tough to work with women who are very conservative. And we started our work with just one woman actually, Gauhar Fatma, who said yes to working with us because she said, I will work, मैं अपने घर के दरवाजों के पीछे काम करती हूँ, किसी को बताना मत, but I want to work. And she was this very underconfident lady who couldn't even look me in the eye when she first spoke to me. And it's been a year. We started our project in October 2009 when I quit my job full time. And now we're at almost 200 women, and Gauhar now looks me in the eye. Her gaze has lifted. The confidence in her is phenomenal. And yeah, so
Wow.
it was very challenging, but like Lalaji said, it's tough to push someone, but when they sort of they're financially independent and they can buy themselves their own phones or their own saris and not depend on their husbands, and we ourselves know how liberating that is to not ask a man for money. So imagine that trickling down to the woman at the village. So it's really
Oh my God.
empowering. And so yeah, it was tough,
How,
but not anymore.
yeah. So Gunjan, you would have
So
something to contribute there.
yes, actually, one question is coming in my mind to Gauri. Like you are working in these recycle, upcycling of these projects. So also, what is like what is your experience in the market acceptance of these products?
So, I think so. We're not essentially a waste management company. And like I said, if the product is beautiful and it actually attracts people, they really want to buy it. So when you look at this box, you're not looking at, oh, it's made from waste. You're looking at, oh, it's a beautiful blue box that I can use in my home. And when you realize that it's made from plastic waste, uh, and it's also about how you sell it, how you market it, right? I think you have to be really good at that. So I think it's about how you really package the entire product as such. So we haven't received any flack or any sort of like, oh acha ye to kabar se bana hai, one of those things. I think it is for the I wouldn't say the educated buyer, but uh, COVID has really made us extremely conscious about what we're doing. So the first thing to look at, and I always use this very random analogy, which is as a girl now, you walk into a bar and you see a guy, you see how good looking he is, and then you want to get to know his story. So similarly for a product, if the product is good looking and attractive, you want to get to know the story much more. So similarly,
That's
it can come from whatever
that's a
caste,
great
creed,
analogy.
I don't
race, religion.
I don't think that in India yet anyone buys a product because it is eco-friendly or it's made by women or it has a social purpose. As you said, they have to like it, and then there is
Yeah,
value addition afterwards when they hear all about it. But I don't think that consciousness yet is, something which is like in the West today. There are specialty shops which sell only sort of recycled or eco-friendly products and things, and they have their clientele. I think here that's not yet permeated very far. So
absolutely.
you
Yeah,
have to
definitely.
sell your product because it is attractive, because it is useful, and to some extent because it's trendy. I mean, if people read about it and they hear about it, then they feel that we want to buy it. Unfortunately, crafts is associated in India always with the past or something which is a little boring. It's always been there. Craft is not yet a brand in itself, and we have to make it a brand.
Soon it
Absolutely,
would.
absolutely.
Soon it would, I think. No, the way we are going, I think there is this whole revival for crafts, and it all depends because in the West, a machine produced product gets more value because it's got a craftsperson's touch to it. Like I have this cup here for my coffee, if you can see it. It's a regular white cup, but it costs, forget about the cost, but it's being done by a folk artist. The design is by a craftsperson. And because it's his pattern which has come onto this cup, it sells for 3 to 4 times its price in the market in Finland. It's the Itala brand which does this. So, I really wonder, Laila ji, how far are we from reaching that point for crafts in our country?
Mridula, I don't want to be cynical, but I really think that in India still, that 80% of customers and visitors, whether it's to a store or whether it's to a bazaar or online, when they hear it's made by a craftsperson, the immediate instinct is to bargain and to beat down
They
that
think it
price.
should be cheaper.
It does not yet have a value.
Mm.
Luckily, there are people like Gauri and Gunjan and who have now started working, and because they, in a way, are able to promote themselves and their organizations, those have become the brand. But
Yeah. So
I think we're a long, long way away, and that's why I'm so excited that actually some of the action in the craft sector has moved away from government departments and NGOs into young entrepreneurs who are not ashamed to go out and market themselves. You know, when we started Dastakaar, uh, an NGO almost felt embarrassed at promoting themselves. And Dastakaar was always considered, they were, I won't name the NGOs, but some really veteran sort of women's organizations and NGOs sort of rather looked down on Dastakaar because they said, you print these fancy cards and you do these decorations and your things. Why do your bazaars? This is a serious work. NGOs must look serious. And so I remember someone commenting even about the fact that I painted my toenails, which was considered very frivolous for an NGO.
Oh dear. Okay. Let me quickly get in Meenal. Let me quickly get in Meenal, who's also been working in this space for the last 30 years in Orissa. Meenal has been doing great work in Orissa. And let's hear your story, Meenal, and how you've made a difference for empowering women over there.
So, Mridula, I've been working since my marriage. It's been 30 years now. And Orissa, as everyone here knows, it's a huge cauldron of crafts. So, whether it was that I had access, the Dokra artisans were just 7-8 kilometers from home. We had the weavers in Noa Patna next door. We had the Kasa workers, the bell metal workers, and Patachitra artists, not very far in Bhubaneswar. So I'm a bit of jack of all trades, master of none, but I just sort of started to work with all these various handicrafts around my hometown. We started to run our old ancestral property, which is over 200 years old, as a heritage property, heritage homestay. So I started with incorporating all the various crafts and giving it a very local flavor. And that is an ongoing process. So the Patachitra came in, and of course, the soft furnishing, the waste paper baskets. It was all like sabai grass, basket weavers, our dinner sets. So and that's where my love affair with craft started very early, from a very early age. But so that's when I started to work with the Dokra artisans, and then it was just like the stories that they had to tell and the conditions that they were working in. They don't get the kind of payment that they
What
should.
are the changes? Yeah, sorry. What are the changes you're seeing in their lives in the last 30 years that you've been doing this? How has craft altered their lives?
So it has to some extent, Mridula, and I'd like to, in the context of women, I do feel there is a change. There is a slight shift. Women are coming more to the fore. In Odisha, there have been women-centric crafts and, of course, male-centric crafts, but women have already always been the secondary workers. So to say, the backstage, whether it is weaving, dokra, but they are coming to the fore now, I feel. There's a lot to do with education. So the families are educating their children, whether it's the girl child, the male members. They're traveling a lot more. Like Lailaji said, they would not see them at a bazaar or at Delhi Hat or that. They are moving out a little more now. They are also receiving skill training. There are more women out there who are trying to get skill training, also trying to sell through social media. So there has been a slight shift that I find there.
So there
Yes.
is there is a shift all over, LLD. What do you think is the next big thing that Indian crafts is heading for? Because there is work happening at ground level at in most areas of the country. There is, so it has lifted off, but what is going to be the next big leap, like Dastakaar has been?
Well, I don't think Daskar is a very big leap, but yes, it was one of the first stumbling footsteps. Uh, I actually think that whether when this will happen, I don't know, but the next leap has to be crafts going mainstream and the crafts producers going mainstream and not being relegated to these little bazaars or to Delhi Hat or to somebody, doing something as a hobby and social work. Because, and I think, perhaps post COVID is a good time because I think people have realized that if you want to generate employment, and in India we obviously need that, uh, you know, a big factory or huge industrial unit may not be the way to go. I mean, they come to a grinding halt when there is something like this pandemic, and that India has this huge advantage that we have literally millions of people who have the ability to make things in
True.
small numbers on their own without huge infrastructure investment, and that maybe this is a direction that the world anyway is ready for, where you're looking at the fact that you can make a one of a kind piece, as cheaply and as well as a huge, industrial production of thousands of pieces exactly the same. And we've
Mm.
all heard these terrible stories about, big garment factories dumping their clothes and having to change the fashion every 2 weeks in order to, sustain themselves, and then having to junk all the unsold stock. Now, if you look at it in India, we can do it. It's extraordinary that it doesn't take more money to make one piece than it takes to make 1,000 pieces, which is completely the reverse of the industrial area, where even to change the color on a piece of running fabric, you need to make at least 1,000 meters in order for it to be viable. So, if we start looking at India and the craft sector as an opportunity, as a potential, as a gold mine, instead of looking at it as, oh, something rather sad and primitive which has to be subsidized, I think we can go a long way. And I think that India could actually become the producer for the world as it used to be in the 17th century. And but it needs a lot of investment. It needs government departments, economists, bureaucrats to look at the sector and think of not subsidizing it or just propping it up, but doing large scale investment in the sector in
In
terms
the
of skilling, in terms of entrepreneurship training, in terms of branding, promotions, all these areas.
My next question, this thing, I wanted to ask Gunjan this. Gunjan, can we have Gunjan on the screen, please? Gunjan, I don't know if she can hear me, but how far do you think, or how much do you think packaging influences the sale of craft product?
Huge, huge.
No? So that's what I thought, IAAH now, since they are a brand in themselves and the others as well. So packaging, investment in packaging, I'm not talking only in terms of money and materials, but also in terms of time and design input in making it meaningful. That would go a long way in making crafts that much more acceptable, right? And like the arrival experience of a craft product versus that has a lot to do with it, the value that you apportion when it's sitting in your living room. I think that would make a big difference, wouldn't it? Gunjan, I had this question for you. Can you hear? Can you hear us? Gunjan, your audio, I think, is okay. We'll wait for Gunjan to come on. Gunjan, are you with us? I think her video is being settled. So, yeah, packaging, I think so. Do you think we could have one segment, say, the craftspersons only working on packaging? And kind of, because these are also times for collaboration. So, if we are, so whether it is social media effort, or it is packaging, or it is doing strategic partnerships, everyone could hold hands with their, as per their strength, and prop it up without waiting for the government or anybody else to come and help us. Why don't we help ourselves? Do you think we could do that, Lailaji?
I think packaging and presentation is very, very important. I mean, I think visual merchandising is another learning of the last 10 years or so, and that even craftspeople themselves have realized that you can have a most exquisite sculpture, but if you wrap it up in old newspaper, it doesn't have appeal, and that the buyer also doesn't value it. But I think that a note of caution about collaboration, because yes, it's very attractive to see that you can have a beautiful piece of jewelry and you can put it into a golden grass, savai grass box made in Orissa, and you can, sell it. But craft in itself, the process is very laborious and long. And if you then add the component of the packaging also having to be made, specifically, the time gap between an order being given and you're being able to supply it is sometimes just not commercially viable.
But I'm
I
sure as
think
we go along, we have Saumya who wants to make a point here. Saumya, please come in.
Yeah,
Yeah, Saumya.
I think talking about packaging, it's something that I love working on, and that's one of the points that in my observation when I came back from field, I feel like that's where we could definitely add value to it. So we've been trying to experiment and looking for clients who would have, like Leila Man said, who would have that kind of budget. One would understand the importance, and to have that kind of timeline where things are not happening last minute, where you're contacting somebody and saying कि मुझे 3 दिन में चाहिए. So definitely can't be handmade then in that case. But we've tried to get into the wedding side of things, where how you gift family something. So we worked with a Zardoti artisan, and we tried to work on like a branding style of wedding, where we picked one. I'm so sorry. Is it echoing?
There was a little echo.
Okay. So yeah, where we tried to develop a visual language for a wedding, and we picked these motifs with the Zadozi artisan to see what can happen in that budget and that timeline. And we made pouches and gift boxes with Saharanpur artisans and Zardoti artisans. So we were lucky to have that kind of timeline and the budget to experiment on that craft portfolio. And it's also brings me back to that point of how this is a creative community. This is a creative job after all. So when they also get to work on something new and something they haven't done before, it takes some time, but once they do it, you feel more fulfilled. So I think packaging definitely plays a very important role. It's something that we when Anshu mentioned the cards that we did, the playing cards with the miniature art, the Diwali boxes that we do, with each of them, which we take out only on Holi and Diwali, we try to experiment on the packaging as well, because that sells first. Because when you're giving a gift, it's usually "Upar ka, how is it looking? Is it beautiful enough?" And then you go to what's inside it to appreciate the gift actually.
True, true. Packaging is actually a
I'd
very big.
like to add a point to this, even the story behind that product or that craft piece, because people are showing interest in where it's come from, who is the person
Yeah.
behind it. So when there's a photo attached or the process, given in some detail, it adds value to it.
You get the process across. I think it's the design communication that would hold the key. Gunjan, what would you have to say to this? And then we get Gauri also to contribute in this.
Yeah, so what I feel is that the design concept and the utility is very, very important. I think that plays a major role because whenever anyone, a customer who is looking for the product, they look at how beautiful it's going to look at their home, how are they going to utilize it. So and then comes the where they want to know when it's like an addition when they come get to know that yeah they are purchasing for a cause as well. So I think the way you get the skills out of these people, the you design and that and the packaging like Soumya just said. So I think that plays a very very important role in attracting, in making the product that attractive to the clients.
Yeah, Gauri, would you like to contribute to this? Can you hear us? Gauri, your screen is on
Hear me
mute.
okay?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
absolutely, our entire ethos of building Sirohi as a brand is reliant. No, I would say reliant, but a major core of it is design, and we work with designers from across the country. They actually work with them through WhatsApp, video calls to make all the products, and then we actually give designers the platform, saying that this designer, say from the Royal College of Art in England, works with these craftswomen to make these 5 products. So absolutely, that is very important, and I think this is something that Leila ji also pointed out that back in the day, and even now, when you talk about a product made by a woman, craftswoman, the automatic reaction is, "Acha, ye to NGO ka product hai." So the brand value comes down significantly, unfortunately, one, and secondly, like people start negotiating. So you have to make a very beautifully well-designed product that people will want to buy. And I'll go back to my analogy of, walking into the bar, that you will see like, what the guy is wearing. You'll see his shoes, you'll see his watch. So similarly with the product, you'll see how it's designed, how it's packaged. So design is very integral. And if you're able to actually really connect, designers with existing craftspeople, I think India, that's currently only contributing, I know, 2% to the global handicraft export market. I think that number can absolutely shoot up if all these craftspeople were given access to good design support to make products that were functional and beautiful. So yeah, so that's what Sirohi as an organization, and that's what Skill Samaritan, which is the foundation. That's what we do. We work with women to provide them with design support, so each product is extremely beautiful. And what we always say is it has a story to tell. So yeah.
Interesting, interesting. So I have two points that I want to cover before we wrap up because it's coming close to our time, 1 hour. But one thing I wanted to ask is how much data do we have on ground for our crafts, Lelaji? Would you kind of share? Do we have any kind of matrix? Do we have a data system that tells us how many crafts in which states, etc., etc.?
We actually, I'm ashamed to say it, that so many years after Indian independence, we still don't know how many craftspeople there are. The numbers, even the official numbers, the government actually gives one the lowest figure, which they are saying it's about 11 or 12 million. Uh, Other estimates take it up to 200 million craftspeople. And we don't know that, we don't know where they are, what their production capacity, whatever. There are a lot of independent organizations who have done work on this. Craft Revival Trust is a wonderful organization which has quite a lot of data. Dastakaar itself has some. Uh, there's a big move which is spearheaded by the Crafts Council of India, which is to get crafts put onto the census, and that this will be one of the questions. Just asking,
Question.
are you a craft person? But what you make and how many people are involved in that. But it is quite shocking that this whole sector is just not taken seriously, although we keep saying it's the second largest sector after agriculture, but we don't look at it as an economic strength.
I think that would be important to get that done. No? If we could have it, say, linked on the Aadhaar card that this person is a crafts person, so he automatically, and if we could get some, automatic benefits out of it, say some kind of, say, travel subsidy
Mm.
or any such thing for him to travel
Yeah.
to the markets and he gets the status as a craftsperson as that would one give us our data that we are looking for that kind of get it all together and at least we'll get to know how many people we already have who are working in which sectors and we could probably if you're looking at a global market if we don't have our numbers how are we going to sell ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So if we get ourselves organized, I think that's getting data together on this would be one big priority for the sector. And we need to kind of see what we can do and put our minds for that. Right.
I think,
And the
Mridula,
simple,
I just want to make one point that all of us who work in the craft sector must constantly emphasize to a very interested world market now who see India as a potential source of wonderful handmade products, that though we have millions of craftspeople, they all make very different things. People think of India as a source of mass produced handicrafts in millions of little Christmas ornaments for department stores in the West, and which are all multiplied into thousands, costing under a couple of dollars. Now, that is not the strength of Indian crafts. We have the most wonderful gamut of techniques, materials, skills. Every small district has its own unique weave or craft. And we should be promoting that. We shouldn't be promoting this idea that India is a place for mass produced cheap products.
and cheap. Correct. I think we need to begin with honoring our master craftsmen. That used to happen some time back. We don't hear much of it now. But I do remember a couple of years ago, till I think there used to be, like from Orissa, I remember, from other states as well, master craftsmen, whether they were doing sandalwood carving,
They
whether
still
they were
have
doing.
they still have the National Master Craftsperson Award happens every year, and now there's another layer. There's a Shilpurus, who are really the sensei, the teachers. But once they get that award, nothing much changes for them. And
Hmm.
somehow, I think we all need to get up and shout about this thing, which is something that India has to be proud about, which is unique to India, and which other countries actually are very envious of our
True.
craftsmen. The Chinese come and take Indian craftspeople there to teach them how to weave Banarsi saris or do chicken embroidery or make
That's
kolhapuri chappal. But we ourselves don't somehow realize what a gold mine we have.
I think we need to begin with honoring our own people first. I think we need to make them the heroes, make them. But they obviously there is something lacking which has stopped that from happening. Would anybody like to answer what is it that's lacking? Why we've not been able to bring them at least halfway up where they ought to be?
They do. I feel they lack a sense of pride, the craftsmanship and the skill that they are capable of. I mean, I say these are like unsung heroes, but with time, I feel they are. It's almost a sense of shame they feel in their living conditions or what. It's not a matter of pride that they're a craftsperson.
Precisely.
So, yes, the minute they get a better education, they move out. They're
That's the
looking
way
for
we
better
look at
jobs.
them and value them and pay them. You know,
Yes, yes,
they,
yes.
if they were
So the
recognized
people which
when
we are
things are
trying,
out, then they would respect themselves. But how can they do that?
I
True.
think we really have to
Um,
hold hands and do this for them. And I think design intervention, as we've all discussed, is a huge thing. So they just need, just their hands to be held a little there and make their products more utilitarian and reach out to a larger market, perhaps.
I think there is
also
also
what I feel
go
that
ahead. Go
the
ahead.
people, these people, these artisans who are working, they are not working to take them on a global level, but what they are working for is to improve their everyday living. And that is what they are more focused on. And it's we who have to do the job to take them on a global platform.
True, true. They can't go on their own. But
Yeah.
the reason why it's the thing, do we need to, is there any, um, yeah, there has to be something that has been missing why we've not been able to, or like why have we not been able to take them to the global? Because we're not reaching those standards. Are we not reaching? What are we lacking? Why are we not there?
can I just add to
Honestly,
this?
I would like to kind of, I wouldn't say disagree, but I think we're getting there. I think there are a bunch of organizations that are coming about. There are lots of different programs, that the government offers as well. And I've been looking, there are lots of impact organizations that are supporting women entrepreneurs in craft. And, it needs to trickle down to the bottom. So I definitely think there is a movement. And if, there are six people from different generations on a platform talking about this, there's obviously something going on, right? So I definitely think that there is a movement. There are brands that are using craft as a way, as a medium to showcase well-designed products. There are designers in this space, like there's Ayush Kalsiwal in Jaipur, and there are a bunch of people who recognize the craft skills. So I think it is happening, and people are
Yeah.
sort of putting it on a global platform. The global design awards for products that are made by craftswomen. It's just that they're represented people who are able to apply, let's say, for a design award at a global scale. Somebody sitting, a craftswoman who is not very educated might not be able to fill out the form, but there are people like us who are representing them. So I think that it's starting, and I think it will reach somewhere. So it's just about having a lookout and being associated with those people and those brands and organizations who want to make that real positive impact.
I know we need to wind up, but one last question. Is scale an issue for us? Laila ji?
Yes,
Is
as I said, that scale takes time in India and in the craft sector, because at the moment there's small pockets of craftspeople who have a certain skill. They are not conditioned to making thousands of pieces. So if you want to scale them up, the entrepreneur or somebody else or the buyer or the exporter, whatever, has to invest in that process of,
yes.
you know,
So we need
skilling
patronage.
potential people, creating the infrastructure, getting the raw material. You can't move from making 10 or 15 pieces to making 1,000 pieces overnight.
That's
And I think that sometimes craftspeople and even entrepreneurs sometimes get a little overexcited by an order, and they feel that we can do it, and then quality suffers. And then that has a backlash, because then the reputation of India itself is damaged, because they say, yeah, you can make a beautiful sample, but when it comes to production, you can't manage it. Which is why I always say that we are lucky in India to still have a large number of people who buy and use craft, and we should build our local market, and that should be the bread and butter. Export should be the icing on the cake when we are absolutely sure that we've got our production systems and our quality control absolutely
in place.
in place.
That's wonderful. So the takeaway for us is that we need patronage for our own craftsmen before we can send it out in the world. We
Not,
ourselves as
not
Indians,
patronage. We need investment. The craft sector is just like any other area of economic activity. It needs investment. It needs R&D. I don't think craftspeople need either subsidies or patronage. They just want to be recognized as professionals.
As a this thing. Great, great. That's a great takeaway for us, for all of us from this. Thank you so much, all our great panelists. Thank you so much, Laila ji, and a big thank you, Gunjan, for organizing and taking this initiative to get people together to talk about it. We look forward to all the takeaways that we're going to get out of this, and we would be sharing soon. Thank you, Gunjan. Would you like to say anything, or should we?
Thank you so much, everyone. And I am very grateful that we could do this chat show today and tell everyone how important it is and how the artisans of India are doing the good work. And I hope this encourages more people to join hands with us in the cause and bring a better platform for all these women.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Laila
you.
ji. And
Thank
hope
you.
to meet everybody soon again. Have a
Yes,
great day.
let's keep in touch, all of us,
Yes.
because we have to work together.
Yes,
Definitely.
absolutely. We all have to hold hands. So we're all here
And a very
together.
happy New Year to all.
Happy New
Yes.
Year.
Thank
Yes.
you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Great.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.